Hello and welcome. I am so glad you are here. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Anne Wintemute, the co-founder and CEO of Aimee Says. Aimee Says is the AI companion for victims and survivors of relationship abuse. She's a fierce champion for the rights of survivors and children and systems that hold perpetrators accountable. This is the Silver Divorce Podcast, broadcast from the Whitfield Media Group studios in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Please follow this show and share it with people you know who are facing divorce. We are proudly brought to you by our title sponsor, the Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and show sponsor, Medicare Misty. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is the area's leading provider of multi-specialty orthopedic care. Using innovative surgical techniques and technologies, our team of specialists deliver exceptional results backed by exceptional patient care. Learn more at sportmed.com. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at medicaremisty.com. And I'm your host, Lisa McCluskey, and now let's podcast. Welcome, Anne.
I'm so happy to be here, Lisa. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, I'm so glad that you joined. This is such an important topic. We know globally nearly 1 in 3 or 30% of women have been subjected to physical and or sexual abuse, and that's by their intimate partner. So that's shocking.
Yes, and if we counted the emotional abuse and financial abuse and, not just being beaten up, but beaten down by your partner, those rates would be much higher.
Oh, gosh. Well, and I learned that they really struggle to voice their experiences because the narrative of their abusers often overpowers them, and they don't feel that they have a voice, and it leaves them without any support, too.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, once a survivor has decided that they want to speak up, that they feel this is unfair, they shouldn't be treated this way, they often find that, they're not only silenced by their partner or ex-partner, but by their communities. It's unfortunately still a topic filled with stigma, and we're trying to change that.
Gosh, and it makes me so sad to think also that in the counseling community, there are just not enough people who can meet the needs of so many.
That's true.
Not everybody can go to a face-to-face counselor or have the courage. Sometimes it takes courage to do that. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. And, many people will talk to a counselor, and that counselor won't pick up on the fact that there might be an unhealthy power dynamic in this relationship. I mean, many people who are experiencing forms of control in their relationship very much believe it's their fault. So they'll go to a counselor and they'll say, I don't understand, I'm trying really hard, but I'm still being really naggy and I need to work on that. And the therapist takes them at their word. They start dealing with, a change in the victim's behaviors without that therapist recognizing that there might be more to the story than even the victim's survivor is able to tell.
Yeah, and is that because the abuser is the type of person who makes the victim believe it's largely their fault, that if they weren't acting this way, they wouldn't have to abuse them?
Well, yes, because if victims knew that they were not deserving of the treatment that they were getting, they wouldn't stay. That's, those grooming behaviors, the love bombing, the shame and obligation and guilt and emotional manipulation and gaslighting, all of those are meant to disengage the victim from trying to hold the perpetrator accountable. And if that victim is going to stay in that relationship, and listen, these relationships can go on for decades without the awareness of the victim. Mm-hmm. If the victim's going to stay, she has to some extent, accept that as truth, accept that abuser's narrative as truth, just to be able to, to sleep at night.
Wow. So this is when the power of AI really comes into play, and the work that you did with Aimee Says really helps to provide women with a relevant, sympathetic, responds to concerns that they're having where they don't feel that they're being judged or they don't feel they can tell the whole story. So
yes,
let's talk about that. Let's start with you sharing how Aimee Says came to be.
Yeah, so my background is in working with women who have ended their relationships and then learned about something called post-separation abuse. They thought that by ending a relationship, other people would step in to help them and the abuse would end. But unfortunately, many times it does not. It can even get worse. So in working with these women, incredible, resilient, powerful women, and there's never enough of me. Right? There's never enough time, enough emotional resource for me to provide the level of support that's really necessary to get, clarity and confidence and courage to continue down the path of rebuilding your life. And then generative AI came out, and my co-founder, Steven, said, hey, I know you work with this really vulnerable population that with most of my clients would be buried in messages from their abusive co-parent. And, maybe we could make an AI that could read those messages for them and help de-trigger them. Yes, Aimee could read the message and say, this is gaslighting and this is manipulation, and then help them respond. Well, it turned out a couple of months of that tool being online that it was wildly popular, and there were about 30,000 messages submitted into Aimee in just a few months. So we set off to building the Aimee that people know and love today, which feels like a companion, a best friend in your pocket whenever you need her.
Oh, that's really wonderful. So if I am looking to talk to Aimee, tell me, how do I connect with this program, and tell me a little bit more about, is it confidential? Is it privileged? Do I have to worry about somebody being able to get what I'm asking?
Yeah, let's talk about all of those things. So first, how do you access Aimee? So you go to aimeesays.com, and Aimee is spelled AIMEE. We thought we were being very clever with the AI in there. Aimeesays.com, and just click Get Started. Your first time there, you're going to answer a couple of questions, and she remembers the answers to those questions. She's going to ask about how safe you are. Some people have the privilege of safety, some don't. Ask where you are in your relationship or ending that relationship. And then when you get to the chat screen, you really just talk to her like you would to a friend. She's not judging you. We're not reading what you say to Aimee or what Aimee says to you. It is a confidential and private space for you to explore maybe some things you can't even tell your friends. Maybe you're worried that you really are a nag, or that maybe it really was your fault. Aimee can help you from anything from there to, how do I tell this story to my attorney? What are the laws in my state? He just filed this motion and I'm feeling crazy. Will you read the motion and help me understand, what evidence do I need to respond? She really runs the gamut of support, anywhere from, I just kind of have this inkling I want to talk about, to I have to go to a hearing tomorrow and I'm so scared. Help me, stay centered during the hearing.
Right. So it's not just then the emotional issues, but it sounds like it's the practicality of the process that you're going through.
Yes, absolutely. Where do I find this form? What does this mean? Like I said, a kind of constant, ever ready, never judging companion in your pocket. And she grows to learn more and more about you over time. And that's if you have an account. We always have available a no account, no storage. There's no history of your conversations. If you have any concerns about your safety, or your ex getting a hold of information without your permission, please feel free to use as much free anonymous chat as necessary.
Okay. So I don't have to worry about my soon-to-be spouse filing a subpoena and getting records from Aimee Says about what I've asked.
Not if you have a guest account, right? So you have a free account, because there's no storage. There's nothing to subpoena.
Okay.
But you raise an important question. So is a account where I have chat stored, you can upload documents, right? Aimee, look through 10 years of our text messaging records. What signs of abuse do you see? All of that stuff stored on there. They are technically subpoenaable. We have not had someone tell us that they were subpoenaed, and we don't know if a judge is going to say, yeah, I do want that, or if someone who's been subpoenaed is able to say, no, it's produced by AI. I'm not submitting that to you. That is that's not special to Aimee Says. That's, ChatGPT is asking themselves the same questions, right? People, I'll have all sorts of conversations with ChatGPT. Is that discoverable if there's a lawsuit? We don't know what that's going to look like. Our guidance to users right now is don't disclose, don't make public, especially not to the person you're separating from, that you use Aimee. And we think that there may be some protective value of attorney-client privilege through work product if you share an account with your attorney, and you can actually make your attorney a team member on your account. Same with if you're working with a therapist, you can make them a team member on that account in order to raise the argument that what's contained in that account is privileged.
Ah, that's smart. Yeah, because it is somewhat of a new frontier, right?
Yes.
And courts will be working through it. And then on the other hand, if you're sharing information with Aimee about abuse that's been going on, that might actually support your case if something is, subpoenaed. So it could work in your favor as well.
Absolutely, and the value so outweighs the risk,
right?
In our opinions,
right? Absolutely,
yeah.
It does. So I do want to step back, because if people are listening, and sometimes people who are going through abuse, they just think it's normal what that person is doing, and everybody is suffering it. Can we just start at the beginning with, what is domestic abuse, and what are the signs somebody is suffering from domestic abuse?
Yeah, I love this question, because sometimes we walk right past this door and we don't open it, we don't look inside. And what ends up happening is we make it easier for victims to disqualify themselves. Nobody wants to be a victim of abuse. Nobody wants to believe that it could happen to them. No one wants to believe that they could be betrayed by a loved one in that way. So it's really easy for people to discount their experiences and say, well, it was just a fight. But there are real telltale signs. First, it's pretty, people are comfortable recognizing, if my partner strangles me, that's domestic violence.
Right.
If he hits me, punches me, busts my lip, that's domestic violence. And absolutely, those are all forms of physical violence that fall under that umbrella. There are also, and really, way more kind of sub-criminal, non-physically harmful forms of coercion or manipulation that are often equally or more devastatingly harmful. So let's talk about psychological abuse. If when you go to your partner to raise what's a legitimate concern, hey, I didn't like the way that you said that thing to me last night, it really hurt my feelings. And their response is, oh, you're too sensitive. You always do this. I can never do anything right. I don't even want to open my mouth anymore, because if I do, I'm sure I'm going to say something wrong. That's gaslighting. Right? And, to the listeners right now, how many of you have heard something that would feel similar to that? Now, what's happened in that dynamic is your partner has said you have no right to respect, autonomy, a voice, an opinion, and it results in powerlessness on the part of the victim, and powerfulness. I get to control what we talk about. I get to control any accountability that I take by the perpetrator. When that happens often enough, the self of the victim diminishes more and more over time. She's going to start to internalize feelings that she's not worthy of a level of treatment, that she's a nag, that there's something wrong with her, that she's overly sensitive. I have to say that's probably the type of abuse that is most pervasive that I see that people just don't recognize. If there's calling you names, nobody gets to call you names. And that might be, you're a slag, you're a, God, you look like a tart in that dress. Uh, it can be subtle, but if you had that little feeling inside of you that didn't feel very good, and you feel like you can't say, hey, don't talk to me that way without starting a fight, there's emotional abuse going on in that relationship. 99% of people who are experiencing relationship abuse are experiencing some form of financial abuse. If you feel anxious when you swipe your credit card because of fear that your partner is going to be upset with you, that could be a sign that you don't have freedom to spend money as you judge appropriate. Obviously, if you might have a spending problem, that's a different story, but have a conversation with Aimee about that. Make sure that you're doing fine. Abusers will enable negative habits like substance dependency in victims, and then use that against them. If your partner weaponizes any mental health concerns you might have, maybe you have depression, maybe you have some anxiety. If he says, oh, this is just your anxiety, or did you take your meds today? Those are all forms of control and manipulation that are intended to keep you small, right?
Right.
And you can't live like that for long or accept those things as true for long before you start to experience really negative impacts on your emotional health, your mental health, your self-esteem, all of that.
Right. And I wanted to step back as you were talking about the emotional abuse. It seems to be as like anything that makes you feel less about yourself. And oftentimes I notice that there is the belittling that comes across as a joke, like, oh, I was joking, but it was really intended to belittle you. And that's pretty common too. And it seems as though anything that person is doing to make you feel less than can fall into that category of emotional abuse and a way of control.
Absolutely. Or maybe you did that. You made a mistake 3 years ago, and they bring it up anytime you maybe have made a mistake, and it's supposed to be a joke, right? Well, It is belittling. It's not a joke. Right. I felt bad about that mistake that I made. I took accountability for it, and abusers will keep you from having the right to move on and redeem yourself from the mistakes that you've made. And then they will tell you that, I'm just kidding. It's just a joke.
Right. I'm just kidding. Yes. That's the worst, because in your heart, you're not kidding.
Right.
You're not kidding. You're really trying to make me feel bad about myself, and so that you have some sort of power over me.
Yes, and yet also you so desperately want to believe they're just kidding and that they wouldn't say that kind of thing to you to hurt your feelings.
Right, because you still love them. And if you love somebody, they're not going to treat you that way, because that's how we are. If you love somebody, you're not going to treat somebody that way, and you expect that of your partner. Well, your partner may have other things going on, like narcissistic control or those other personality disorders.
Yes.
Can play into that.
Yes, we just like they will project themselves onto their victims. Victims will project their good attributes onto the person doing harm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so abuse does not necessarily have to be physical. And what about, though, you hear about those guys, and I know in my time I've known some to be this way, where they may not hit you, but they're throwing something that sails past your head all the time, or they're hitting the wall. Can you talk about that impact?
Yeah. So imagine that you're standing in a room, and hopefully you're imagining, and you don't have to go back into your own history. You're standing in a room, you're having a tense moment with somebody, and they throw something across the room in your direction or not. What is the feeling that you have in that moment?
Fear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you not think that the intention is to create fear?
Yes.
It is perhaps less physically harmful than actually being struck or slapped or pinched. It is to the same exact end. that's what we need to rationalize, right? Not what was the behavior, is it bad enough? It's what was the intended effect. The intended effect was for you to shut your mouth in that moment, back down from whatever position that you were taking, and to not put yourself in a situation like that again. That is abuse. That is one person controlling the relationship, what's discussable, what's not discussable, who will be accountable, and they're using fear to do it. It is toxic to live in fear.
Yes, and I have to tell you, I actually know somebody, and it was almost like, well, he hit the wall. That's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal, and it is designed to control you. And what if it's not the wall next time?
Yeah, and it doesn't need to not be the wall next time. It's bad enough, right? We're rationalizing. Well, what if it's me next time? Don't even rationalize. It was the wall. The wall certainly didn't deserve it.
Right.
He chose to use fear to control the situation, to stop you from doing something that you have a right to do, or to make you do something you have a right not to do. Maybe the thing was thrown at the wall because you wanted to go out and see your friends. It can go both ways, keeping you from doing something or making you do something.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if I am, just curious, I'm in this situation, I'm not ready to leave perhaps, or I'm still rationalizing in my head that behavior is okay. How can Aimee help me through that?
Absolutely. And I first want to say, you don't ever have to leave. Many people choose to stay, right? There are opportunity costs, or they're staying for the kids, or retirement. And with the right type of support and understanding of themselves, especially with the more kind of narcissistic abuse, certainly not with high risk physical abuse, please don't stay. But many people choose to stay in emotionally abusive relationships. And if you have the support that you need, and that's the decision that you make, more power to you. Aimee is never going to tell you that you have to leave. She's not going to push you to leave. She's just going to try to help you stay safe in the choices that you do make. But let's say I want to stay in this relationship, or I'm certainly not really thinking about leaving, but something's not right and I want to know more. You go to Aimee and you say that. I'm kind of not sure about some of these behaviors, and, can I tell you a scenario and we'll talk about it? Yeah, she'll respond, I'm so glad that you're here. Yes, please share whatever you're comfortable with. And just like a conversation, you share, maybe it was last night at the dinner table and this thing that was said and how sad you felt when you went to bed. And she's going to be right there to help you get some clarity, like, oh, it sounds like, this was his intention, or this was his goal. How did that make you feel? How do you feel about how you handled the situation? Do you want to try something different next time? She's just going to kind of follow your lead, and she'll come up with a couple ideas, and you can decide if any of those are things that you want to talk more about. And the goal is that after you feel clear about what happened, and listen, if you are talking to Aimee about something, in your gut the truth, but sometimes it's really helpful to have somebody else be like, yeah, that is true, right? So she's not going to tell you something you didn't already know deep down inside of yourself. And so there's some clarity, and then hopefully some confidence. I'm going to feel more clear about the situation next time, or I'm not going to let that gaslighting work. Or if that happens again, I'm going to say, I don't really want to be spoken to this way, and I'm going to, step out and go for a walk, right? Whatever feels right for you.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a great way to get feedback that can give you some tools to help manage, and perhaps start to slowly shift, the narrative that's happening in the marriage. Mm-hmm. If you intend to stay and you want to find a way to make it work.
Got an injury that just can't wait? There's no need to delay your care. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is excited to announce that our Urgent Ortho Walk-In Clinic is now available on Saturdays at the Gun Barrel Road location. Open from 8 to noon, we're here to treat sprains, strains, fractures, and more. No appointment needed. So skip the long ER wait and get specialized orthopedic care fast. Visit us this Saturday at Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics Urgent Ortho. We're the center for expert care right when you need it. Learn more at sportmed.com.
People can, like I said, live for a long time in an emotionally abusive marriage when they learn how to keep the abuse or the manipulation from working.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. And sometimes they have to, like you said, maybe they have the kids and they can't afford to go off on their own easily. They don't have a lot of assets, or there's so many reasons why people have to make that decision. Mm-hmm. But with the support of something like Aimee, yeah, I see there's hope in being able to change that narrative and give you the comfort of, okay, I can get some new ways to handle some scenarios and make it a little bit easier to live in this environment, or perhaps change the environment. Does that make sense?
Well, if someone calls you a name and it hurts, is different from someone calls you a name and you think, okay, I just got called a name. That's about him, not me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And the difference is, is this endurable? Or is this cumulatively causing greater and greater harm? So I just want to be really clear that people do stay in these relationships, and you have every right to make that decision. No one should take that decision away from you. And there are ways to do it with less harm. And knowing what's happening, knowing the tactics that are being used, and not buying into them, believing that you're inferior, creates a way for you to do it and minimize or mitigate the risks.
Wonderful. Yeah, I see nothing but a win-win on this one. You have that outlet, you can ask whatever you want, and get the help that you need. And it's confidential. Yep. Your spouse doesn't need to know that you're asking these questions.
Yes, absolutely. And we have a quick exit button up in the top that'll just take you to a Google browser window. And, with any technology, if, you're concerned that he's looking over your shoulder, or that you may be, figured out, look into, and you can talk to Aimee about it for sure. How do I clear my browser history? What steps can I take to, prevent my partner from finding out that I'm using you? You can talk about those things with Aimee as well.
Great. No, I was thinking about that. If they come up behind you, you just hit that exit button and it goes right to a browser screen, and they have no idea what you've been doing.
Yes. And have your story prepared. I'm just going to look up a recipe.
Right. Recipe always helps.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, you've worked with many women throughout your years, and is there a story that you may be aware of as a result of using Aimee, or through your work in person, that's particularly moved you?
Gosh, picking one would be so hard. We have heard from 2 users about getting kind of firsts in their state of finding of financial abuse. And what was the other one? Because they used AI to help organize the facts of the case and apply them directly to the law, which is one of the things that Aimee is really good at. One of the things that's so hard about divorcing an abuser is you feel like this is your time to share your story and that the court will hear it. But the court is actually very limited in what they can hear and what's actually relevant to them. So being able to tell Aimee your story and have her help you understand what aspects of that are going to be relevant to the statutes in your state for the dissolution of your marriage really helps improve whether or not the survivor gets an outcome that's as close as possible to the one that she wants. The power of AI is incredible. It is as good as your willingness to sit down and engage with it. And I absolutely believe that we will continue to hear cases of success like that.
As you talked about that, preparing your case, I started to think about people who are in a high conflict divorce, and one spouse perhaps might have more assets or is a business person, and the other may not have that particular knowledge of everything that the marriage has, all of the assets, and Aimee can help level that playing field in that instance.
So let's say you come and you say, there's all these accounts that I don't know about and I've never had access to them. Say you're in Colorado where it's not equal distribution, it's equitable distribution. I was kept from working in this marriage. I was kept at home. First I raised the children, and then, after the kids left, it was my job to be the homemaker. And I really feel like I lost out on an opportunity to build a retirement or have a career where I can sustain myself. Aimee can help you translate that into, for example, I was financially abused and limited, and so the distribution of financial assets in the marriage should recognize that in order to be truly, truly equitable. That is absolutely the kind of conversation that you can have with Aimee. Or how would I find out if he has an account at Chase? Because I saw a Chase receipt once. Right. And then if you can walk through, okay, here's who you could talk to. Here's who you could call. This is the question that you would ask. So yes, she's like a high-powered thought partner who doesn't have the fear that really can override the functioning of a survivor, and also has, essentially the entirety of the internet at her fingertips.
Wow. That's remarkable. It's like having a butler.
Yes.
Yes. It's like
yes.
It can help you with the emotional abuse that you're going through and ways to manage conversations. It can almost help you organize your entire court case, help you find assets, if you will. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there isn't anything that Aimee can't do to help you get through a traumatic journey.
Yes, we can throw a bank statement in there and say, how much money did he spend at liquor stores? And in 2 seconds, here's all of the dates and transactions that appear to be liquor stores, and here's the total sum.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, super fun. And we learn, so much of what Aimee can do, we learn from users who are able to share that with us.
So in many states, if the person is having an affair, you can recoup the costs that they spent on their affair partner. So I could see where you could have Aimee search through credit card statements for, hotel receipts or certain restaurants, or I could see where it could help you organize that to begin to recoup some of those monies.
Yes, and that's called dissipation. Yes, and not just find those, but these were, for an affair partner. What's the law in my state? How do I apply this? We hope that everyone has a qualified legal representation. If you do, you can use Aimee to come up with ideas and share those with your attorney. It certainly can lighten the load and the economic burden of having to pay that attorney. If you are doing this pro se, please double check everything. We've all heard the stories about AI saying things that aren't true, okay? Mm-hmm. Go ahead and double check. We're doing everything we can on our end, but please do what you can on your end as well. Have her help you make an argument for why this was dissipation and why you should be awarded that sum.
Wow, it needs to be on your team. You have your legal team, your emotional team, and you have Aimee.
Yes. She works best as a team member, but we know how many folks have no access to representation, or their ex called every attorney and did an intake with every attorney in the county, and now no one can represent them without a conflict. This. At the end of the day, if all you have is Aimee, please use the heck out of her.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's wonderful. That's so impressive, and I think everybody needs to know about this and share it with anybody who is going through divorce or who is in a very challenging personal relationship. It can be such a big help.
Yes.
So I want to ask you a few personal questions. What book is on your bedside table?
I have a crossword puzzle book on my bedside table.
You are one of those brainy people who can do the New York Times crossword puzzles, huh?
I think they're the simple. I think I have commitment issues, and picking up a book, I know that I'm not going to finish it.
Well, I have to tell you, I was listening to an interview with Simon Sinek, and he, he said, everybody thinks that I have read tons of books and that's all I do is read books. He said, I've read tons of books a quarter of the way, half of the way, 3/4 of the way. And I said, I felt validated because I'm the exact same way. I have tons of books I've started, but only maybe a few that I've actually finished. So that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. In our house, the threshold for being able to buy a book is, can you imagine yourself reading it? Because, which of course I can imagine myself reading this. So I buy it. I mean, there's a giant library, right? I can look at it from my head being on my pillow. Lots of books in there, not a lot of time to read them, but I'm allowed to buy it as long as I can imagine myself reading it.
Well, now I like buying them for my daughter. So I just purchased the new Mel Robbins book of Let Them and gave it to one of my daughters. So I get great joy in that too.
That's great. I have recommended that one.
Yeah. So you've inspired so many people with your work, but who is inspiring you today?
Oh, every client I've ever had. If they knew how much I drew on their experiences, our experiences together, working together to build the best and most capable and most gentle and trauma-informed and supportive AI companion, they would think that I should have been paying them the whole time. I absolutely live on and am fueled by the stories of the people who are out there on the front lines. We take everything we hear from you and turn it around and try to build a better tool.
That's remarkable. And as AI continues to progress, I would imagine it's just going to continue to get more sophisticated.
Yes, staying up with it it's really hard to maintain parity with these AIs out there. So we're not going to try to. We're not going to have all the things that ChatGPT has, that Gemini, any of those have. We are really focused on the specialized tools and resources that survivors need. Because listen, Aimee is like the first comprehensive support product designed entirely for people who are impacted by relationship abuse. The attorneys that you see, the therapists that you see, you're an edge case, right? They didn't train for representing you. They didn't train for, providing you a domestic violence survivor therapy. You're kind of the edge of their training. And Aimee isn't. Aimee is absolutely built on the unique set of needs that victims and survivors have, and that's where we're going to stay.
That's fantastic. And it is so true. So many people look to their attorneys to be counselors, and they're not financial counselors. They're not emotional counselors. You really need to have a great support system.
Yes.
So that's fantastic. And I forgot to ask you, how long did it take you? How long were you working on Aimee before you actually launched it?
So we started in the kind of fall of 23. That was when we built that little bot that she couldn't chat with you. You paste a message in and she would generate a single response back. And that came out in October of 03. And then in January, I have it right here, January 22nd of 2024 is when the Aimee that people know today came online.
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple of months, and we spend 60 hours a week, more for my co-founder Stephen, who's doing all the technical work, just making her better and better every day.
Yeah. Well, a couple of months to produce, but you had decades of experience in working with people to put together what you knew they would need to be helped.
Yep, and we continue to add more and more.
That's great. Well, is there anything I haven't touched on with Aimee that you want to make sure our audience knows?
No, I don't think so. I just encourage people to give it a try. A lot of people are nervous about AI, but you can go and be nervous, and we're not going to read it. Like I said, we can't see anything. So go give it a try, and we really believe that you'll find it helpful.
That's wonderful. And I appreciate you joining me today. Would you just take a minute to share how our listeners can get in touch with you? Again, the website and any social media.
Yes, Aimee Says on Facebook, Aimee Says DV on all the other handles. Any of the support or contact buttons on the website land directly in my inbox, or you can reach me at Anne with an E on the end at aimeesays.com.
All right. I'm going to put all of that in the show notes so that people can easily find it, and I'll put it on the Silver Divorce Podcast Facebook page as well and Instagram. So I want to make as many people aware of this valuable resource as we possibly can.
Thank you so much for everything you do.
Oh, thank you. Please join me on the next episode of the Silver Divorce Podcast. I also ask you to do me a favor and please follow this show and share it with people you know who are going through divorce. I'd love to hear from you at silverdivorcepodcast@gmail.com. This podcast is brought to you by our title sponsor, the Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and show sponsor, Medicare Misty. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is the area's leading provider of multi-specialty orthopedic care. Using innovative surgical techniques and technologies, our team of specialists deliver exceptional results backed by exceptional patient care. Learn more at sportmed.com. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at medicaremisty.com. Whether you are considering divorce or maybe you're newly in the divorce process, we'll help you on your journey and tell you things your attorney might not tell you. Until next time, remember, divorce, it's just one event. It does not define who you are. I'm Lisa, and I'll see you next time.